On a faraway planet, where the skies were dark and the land was wild and untamed, Zara stood silently in the shadows. The planet was home to creatures so dangerous that no one dared to venture too deep into the forests or deserts. These creatures were known to be the deadliest predators in the galaxy, their size and strength enough to scare even the bravest aliens. Zara was a tracker, skilled at navigating through the dangerous world. Her people had sent her here to study the creatures to understand them better. She was confident in her abilities. After all, she had trained for years, mastering survival techniques and studying the predators of her own world. But nothing had prepared her for what she was about to witness. Zara had been observing the planet's most fearsome predator from a distance for days. The creature, a massive beast with sharp claws and glowing eyes, was known to stalk its prey with incredible precision. It moved silently through the dense forests, its long limbs enabling it to leap great distances and strike with deadly accuracy. Zara knew that if she made one wrong move, she would become the creature's next meal. As she watched the predator from her hidden spot, she noticed something strange. A human. She had spotted him earlier when he crashed his ship into the planet's surface. She had been curious about him at first, wondering what kind of human could survive in such a hostile environment. But now, as she watched him move through the forest, she was more than curious. She was confused. The human was unarmed. He was walking calmly through the jungle, his eyes scanning the area as if he wasn't afraid of the danger that lurked in every shadow. Zara's instincts told her to stay hidden, but something about the human's presence intrigued her. He didn't look like someone who was lost or desperate. He moved with purpose, almost as if he was in control of his surroundings. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. Zara's heart raced as the predator emerged from the dense undergrowth. It was enormous, its muscles rippling as it prowled toward the human. The beast let out a low growl, the sound echoing through the trees. Zara knew that this was no ordinary predator. This was the one they all feared, the creature that had driven even the bravest of alien hunters to flee in terror. But to her shock, the human didn't run. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he stood there, staring directly at the predator. As it slowly circled him, Zara's hand instinctively went to the weapon at her side, ready to defend herself if things went wrong. She had no idea what the human was thinking, but she knew he was about to make a mistake. The predator lunged, its claws outstretched. Zara gasped, expecting the human to be torn apart in seconds. But instead of panicking, the human raised his hands. He didn't reach for a weapon or try to defend himself in the traditional way. He just stood there, calm and focused. To Zara's disbelief, the predator stopped in midair, just inches from the human's face. It snarled, its jaws snapping, but it didn't attack. The human's hands remained outstretched, as if he was communicating with the creature in some way. Zara couldn't believe what she was seeing. The human was doing something no one else had ever been able to do. He was taming the predator. The creature circled the human, sniffing the air, its eyes flicking between him and the trees around them. The human stood perfectly still, not once moving or showing fear. Zara felt her heart race as she watched the incredible scene unfold before her. She had heard of humans before, but never in her life had she imagined they could be so fearless, so in control. For several long minutes, Zara didn't dare move. She couldn't take her eyes off the human. What kind of power did he possess? How could he remain so calm in the face of such danger? It wasn't just bravery that made him stand tall against the predator. It was something else. Something deeper. Something she couldn't quite understand. Then something strange happened. The predator stopped circling the human and lowered its head. It was no longer snarling or showing aggression. Instead, it seemed almost docile. The human took a slow step forward, his hands still raised in a calming gesture. The predator didn't move, but it didn't attack either. It just watched him, as if waiting for something. Zara's mind raced. She had been trained to hunt and kill dangerous creatures, but what she was seeing now was something entirely different. The predator, the most fearsome creature on the planet, was being tamed by this human. Zara had never seen anything like it before. The human finally lowered his hands and stepped back. The predator stood still, its eyes locked on him. Zara was frozen in place, unsure of what to do next. She had come to study the creatures of this world, but now she felt like an outsider. She had no idea how to approach this situation. What was she witnessing? How could this human control such a powerful beast? The human turned around and began walking away, as if nothing had happened. He didn't even glance in Zara's direction. For a moment, she thought about calling out to him, asking him how he had done it. But something told her that if she did, she might lose the chance to learn the truth. Zara stayed where she was, hidden in the shadows, watching the human disappear into the jungle. Her mind was racing with questions, and the answer to all of them seemed to lie in the human. She had to find him, talk to him, and learn his secrets. But more than that, she had to understand why he was able to do what no one else could do. As the sun began to set, Zara made her decision. She would follow the human, watch him, and learn from him. The predators of this planet were no longer just a study for her. They had become the key to understanding something far greater, the potential of humanity. And so, with her heart pounding in her chest, Zara set off after the human, determined to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the wilds of this strange, untamed world. Zara kept her distance as she followed the human through the dense jungle. She had never felt more curious or confused in her life. The human, Ethan, walked with ease, his movements smooth and controlled, as if he had lived on this harsh planet for years. Zara couldn't stop wondering how he did it. How did he tame the planet's most dangerous predator without a weapon or force? The jungle was alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the chirping of insects, and the occasional growl of a distant creature. But through it all, Ethan remained calm. He didn't seem bothered by the dangers that surrounded him. Zara had never seen anything like it. She had studied the predators of her world, and even her people's most skilled warriors wouldn't dare venture into this jungle without proper weapons and protection. She had heard stories of humans before. They were known for their resourcefulness and survival skills, but nothing she had heard compared to what she had witnessed today. Ethan had not only faced the predator, but had tamed it. Zara had seen the power of the creature firsthand, and yet Ethan had stopped it with nothing but his presence. Zara's mind raced as she followed him deeper into the jungle. She stayed hidden behind trees and bushes, careful not to make a sound. She had learned from her people that observation was key to understanding a new species, and that was exactly what she intended to do. She had to learn from Ethan. She had to understand how he did it. As they walked, Zara noticed Ethan occasionally stopping to examine the surroundings. He would crouch down and study the ground, his eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. He was like a predator himself, moving with such precision that it was almost as if he could sense danger before it even appeared. Zara admired his focus. It was unlike anything she had ever seen in an alien. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile creatures, not capable of surviving on such a hostile world. After what seemed like hours, they reached a small clearing. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the ground. Ethan stopped and looked around, his eyes narrowing as if he were searching for something. Zara, hidden in the shadows, watched him carefully. He was looking for something. Zara couldn't tell what it was, but she knew it was important. She watched as he knelt down and picked something up from the ground. It was a small creature, a strange-looking animal she had never seen before. Ethan held it gently in his hands, inspecting it closely. It was injured, its leg broken, and its body trembling. Zara couldn't believe her eyes. Ethan wasn't just surviving in the jungle. He was helping the creatures. He wasn't a hunter like her people. He was something else. Zara had never seen an alien treat a creature with such care and compassion. She had always been taught to see the predators as enemies to be defeated. But Ethan was showing her a different way. Without a word, Ethan gently set the creature down on a soft patch of grass. He made a few quick movements, using what appeared to be tools to bind the creature's broken leg. Zara watched in awe as he worked with the same calm precision that he had used with the predator. When he was finished, he stood up and looked down at the creature. It stared up at him with its large, fearful eyes, but it didn't run. It didn't attack. Instead, it seemed to trust him. Zara felt a strange sensation in her chest. She had always thought of herself as strong, capable, and fearless, but compared to Ethan, she felt small. What kind of human was he? How could he tame both the deadliest predator and a helpless creature with nothing but his calm demeanor? As if sensing her presence, Ethan turned and looked directly in Zara's direction. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Zara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been so careful, so quiet, and yet somehow Ethan had noticed her. He smiled, but it wasn't a smile of surprise or anger. It was a smile of understanding. Are you going to keep hiding, or are you going to come out and talk? Ethan's voice was calm, without a hint of fear. It was as if he knew exactly who she was and what she was doing. Zara felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her. She had been so focused on learning from him that she had forgotten to consider what he might be thinking. With a deep breath, Zara stepped out from behind the trees, her eyes never leaving Ethan's. She didn't know what to say, but the curiosity inside her was too strong to ignore. She had to know how he had tamed the predator. She had to know what made him different from the others. Ethan raised an eyebrow as Zara approached him. "You've been following me for a while now," he said, his voice friendly but curious. "What's your name?" Zara hesitated for a moment before answering. "I am Zara," she said, her voice steady. "I've been observing you." "Observing? Me?" Ethan repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. "What for?" Zara struggled to find the right words. She had never been one to share her thoughts so openly, but something about Ethan made her want to understand him. "I saw you with the predator," she said slowly. "I saw how you controlled it. How did you do it? Why didn't you fight it like the others would?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. He didn't seem surprised by her question. In fact, he seemed to expect it. "It's not about fighting," he said quietly. "It's about understanding. Most creatures don't want to fight. They just want to survive. They're driven by instinct, just like us. If you can understand that, you can work with them instead of against them." Zara felt a strange sense of realization. She had spent her life learning how to defeat the predators, how to kill them before they killed her. But what if Ethan was right? What if understanding them was the key to survival, not destruction? "I've been trained to fight," Zara said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can do what you do." Ethan smiled again, his expression warm. "You can," he said simply. "It's not about being trained in the old ways. It's about being willing to see things differently." Zara looked at the creature lying in the grass, still trusting Ethan despite its fear. For the first time, she felt a shift inside her. Maybe there was more to survival than what she had been taught. Maybe there was a way to live in harmony with this planet, instead of constantly fighting it. "Thank you," she said softly, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She wasn't sure why she said it, but somehow, Ethan's calm approach had made her realize that there was much more to learn. Ethan nodded, his smile never fading. "You're welcome, Zara. Let's see what else we can learn together." The next few days passed in a blur of strange discoveries and quiet revelations for Zara. She had never imagined that she would be learning alongside a human, of all things, let alone one who seemed to have such a deep connection with the creatures of this hostile world. Ethan didn't just survive, he understood. He knew how to move silently through the jungle, how to read the signals of the animals around them, and most importantly, how to communicate with them without force. Zara had always been taught to fear the planet's predators. Her people had long ago given up on trying to tame them. It was easier to fight, to protect, and to kill than to try to live alongside them. But Ethan had shown her a different way, a way that confused and intrigued her. Today, they had set out to find another predator, one that had been reported to be terrorizing a nearby settlement. Zara had been nervous at first, unsure if she was ready for another encounter with the creatures. But after days of observing Ethan, she had come to trust him. There was something about his calm presence that put her at ease. It wasn't like the usual fear she felt before a hunt. This time, she felt curiosity. As they moved through the jungle, Zara couldn't help but watch Ethan. He moved with such grace, like a predator himself. His every action was deliberate, and he never seemed to hurry. Even when they encountered smaller creatures, ones that might have been dangerous in the wrong circumstances, he didn't react with fear. Instead, he studied them, understanding their behavior in a way Zara had never seen before. "Why do you look at them like that?" Zara asked quietly one afternoon as they crouched behind some thick bushes, watching a pack of wild creatures moving through the trees. Ethan turned his head. To her, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "What do you mean?" Zara's gaze shifted to the creatures. "You don't seem afraid of them. You don't react like we would. Most would shoot first, ask questions later." Ethan's smile faded slightly, but his eyes remained kind. "Most don't understand them. These creatures aren't just mindless beasts. They're driven by instinct, yes, but they have their own way of surviving. If you approach them with understanding, you can see that they're not much different from us." Zara stared at him, her thoughts swirling. She had always been taught to fight, to defend herself against the predators. Her people had built entire cities in the sky to keep away from the creatures below. They saw them as enemies, things to be feared and killed. But Ethan was showing her something else entirely. He was teaching her that there was more to survival than fighting. Maybe there was a way to coexist, a way to understand the creatures instead of destroying them. As they continued their journey, Zara began to notice how Ethan's movements had started to influence her own. She wasn't as tense as she had been before. Her steps were quieter, more measured, and she found herself scanning the environment more carefully, just like Ethan did. She had learned the basics of survival, but Ethan was teaching her something deeper. He was showing her how to connect with the world around her. Eventually, they reached the area where the predator had been sighted. Zara's heart raced as she looked around, her instincts on high alert. The air was thick with the scent of the jungle, and the ground beneath her feet was soft and damp. She could hear the faint rustling of leaves in the distance, the telltale sign of a creature moving. Through the brush, Ethan motioned for her to stay still. He crouched down, his eyes scanning the trees. Zara did the same, her pulse quickening. She had seen predators before, but this one was different. It was faster, more aggressive, and it had been terrorizing the nearby settlement for days. The people had described it as a massive, four-legged creature, with jaws capable of crushing bone and claws sharp enough to tear through armor. "I've dealt with creatures like this before," Ethan whispered, his voice calm. "Stay close to me and follow my lead. If we stay calm, we'll be fine." Zara nodded, trying to steady her breathing. She didn't like the idea of approaching such a dangerous creature. But she trusted Ethan, and for the first time she wasn't afraid. They moved slowly, silently, through the thick underbrush. The predator's scent grew stronger, filling the air with a sharp metallic odor. Zara could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up, but she kept her focus. Ethan had done this before. She had to believe that they could do it together. As they rounded a bend in the path, the creature appeared. It was even larger than the descriptions had suggested, its body covered in thick dark scales. Its eyes gleamed with hunger, and its mouth was open, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The creature froze when it saw them, its muscles tensing as if it were deciding whether to attack or flee. Zara's breath caught in her throat. It was a terrifying sight, one that would have sent any other person running for their life. But Ethan didn't flinch. He stood still, his eyes locked on the predators, his expression calm. Zara watched, mesmerized. She had never seen anyone face such a creature without fear. Ethan raised his hand slowly, his movements deliberate. Zara's heart raced as she watched him. Would it work? Could he really tame this creature like he had done with the others? To her surprise, the predator didn't attack. Instead, it crouched low to the ground, its eyes still locked on Ethan's. It was as if it was waiting for him to make the next move. "Just like we practiced," Ethan murmured, more to himself than to Zara. Zara watched as Ethan took a step forward, his hand still raised in that same calming gesture. The predator growled. Softly, but it didn't move. It was almost as if it recognized that Ethan wasn't a threat. Slowly, Ethan moved even closer, his eyes never leaving the predator's. He spoke softly, his voice steady and soothing, and for a moment, Zara could almost believe that he was speaking to the creature like it was a friend, not an enemy. The predator's growl faded, replaced by a low, almost curious sound. It seemed to relax, its muscles loosening as it sat back on its haunches. Zara couldn't believe what she was seeing. This was the same creature that had terrorized the settlement, the one that had killed many of the people in the area. And yet here it was, sitting peacefully in front of Ethan, as if it had been tamed by his presence alone. Zara stepped forward, her eyes wide with awe. She had seen predators submit to force before, but this was different. This was not about fear or violence. It was about understanding, about connection. Ethan wasn't forcing the creature to submit. He was asking it to trust him. The predator's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, it seemed almost peaceful. Zara could hardly believe it. She had always thought that humans were weak, that they could never survive on a planet like this. But Ethan had shown her something she could never have imagined. Humanity's strength wasn't in their ability to fight. It was in their ability to connect, to understand, and to live alongside the creatures of the world, instead of against them. Ethan turned to Zara, his face serious but filled with a quiet satisfaction. "It's not about making them submit," he said softly. "It's about earning their trust." Zara nodded slowly, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just witnessed. This was a lesson she would never forget. The next day, everything felt different. Zara walked through the jungle beside Ethan, but it wasn't the same as before. There was no longer a sense of fear in her steps. Instead, there was a quiet confidence. She had learned so much in the last few days. Her mind was constantly buzzing, with new thoughts, new ideas. And it all started with Ethan. He had shown her that there was another way to deal with the creatures of this world. No longer did she have to see them as enemies to destroy. She could learn from them, work with them, understand them. As they made their way deeper into the jungle, Zara could feel the change in herself. She was no longer just an observer. She was part of something bigger. She had seen what Ethan was capable of, and now she wanted to learn everything he could teach her. Today was the day she would put everything into practice. They had been tracking another predator, a massive creature that had been terrorizing a nearby village. The creature was known for its speed, its ability to strike without warning. It was feared across the planet, and even the bravest hunters had failed to capture or kill it. Zara had been part of a team that tried to hunt it down, but they had never been successful. This time, though, she wasn't just following orders. She was ready to face it head-on, to try something different. Ethan seemed calm as ever, his eyes scanning the surroundings with that same focus Zara had come to admire. He was so at ease in this environment, as though he belonged here. Zara couldn't help but feel small in comparison. She had spent so many years studying the creatures of her world, but it had always been about surviving. Ethan wasn't just surviving. He was living in harmony with the planet. After a few hours of walking, they reached the clearing where the creature had been spotted. Zara's heart began to race as the familiar fear crept in. She had seen this predator before. It was a beast of legend, known to move like a shadow, fast and deadly. Every step it took seemed to shake the ground beneath it. Zara wasn't sure she was ready to face it again. Ethan stopped and turned to her. "You're ready," he said simply. Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with doubt. "I'm not sure I am," she admitted. "This creature, it's unlike any other I've seen." Ethan smiled, his expression warm. "It's just like the others. It's driven by instinct. The key is understanding that. We don't have to fight it. We just need to show it that we're not a threat." Zara nodded, trying to calm her nerves. She trusted him. She had to. They had faced danger together before, and each time she had learned more about herself and the world around her. This was no different. They crouched low and began to move quietly through the brush. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to focus. Ethan was right. It wasn't about fighting. It was about connecting with the creature, understanding its behavior. She had to stop seeing it as a monster and start seeing it as just another life form, struggling to survive in a harsh world. They found the creature lying in the shade of a large tree, its massive form barely visible beneath the leaves. Zara's breath caught in her throat as she took in its size. It was larger than she had imagined, its dark, sleek body covered in armored scales. Its eyes glowed with a fierce light, scanning the area around it. It was waiting, watching, ready to strike. Ethan raised his hand, signaling for Zara to stay still. He moved slowly, stepping carefully over the ground, making no sound. Zara followed, him matching his movements, trying to mimic his calmness. She could feel the predator's eyes on her, its presence heavy and intimidating. As they neared, Ethan stopped and crouched down. He motioned for Zara to do the same. Zara's heart was pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She had to focus. This wasn't about fighting. It was about understanding. The creature's eyes locked onto Ethan, its growl deep and rumbling. Zara could feel the tension in the air, the dangerous power of the predator. But Ethan didn't flinch. He simply raised his hands, palms facing the creature. Slowly, he began to speak, his voice low and steady. Zara couldn't hear the words, but she could see the effect they had on the creature. The predator's growl softened, and its stance relaxed slightly. It wasn't attacking, it was listening. Zara had never seen anything like it. She glanced at Ethan, who gave her a small nod, encouraging her to step forward. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to move. Slowly, she began to approach the creature, mimicking Ethan's calm movements. The predator's eyes never left her, but it didn't growl or attack. It just watched, as if it was waiting to see what she would do. Zara stopped a few feet from the creature, her hands raised in the same way Ethan's had been. She had no weapons, no tools to defend herself. She was completely vulnerable. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel afraid. She felt connected. The predator wasn't just an enemy. It was a part of this world, just like her. And if she could understand that, maybe she could earn its trust. For what seemed like an eternity, nothing happened. The predator stared at her, its glowing eyes watching her every move. Zara could hear her breath in the stillness, her body trembling slightly from the effort to remain calm. And then, slowly, the predator lowered its head. Its eyes softened, and the growl faded away. It didn't attack. It didn't retreat. It just accepted her. Zara felt a rush of disbelief and awe flood through her. She had done it. She had connected with the creature. It wasn't about force. It wasn't about fear. It was about understanding. Ethan smiled as he stepped forward, his eyes filled with pride. You did it, Zara. Zara turned to him, her voice trembling. I can't believe it. I thought I would never be able to quotes. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, his smile kind. You didn't just tame the creature, you understood it. That's the key. The creatures here aren't enemies. They're part of the world. We just need to learn how to live with them. Zara looked back at the predator, still sitting quietly in front of her. It was no longer a monster. It was just another creature, struggling to survive in the same way she had been. And for the first time, Zara truly understood what Ethan had been trying to teach her. Humanity's strength wasn't in their ability to fight. It was in their ability to connect, to understand, and to live in harmony with the world around them. The jungle was quieter now, the dangerous tension that had once gripped Zara's heart slowly fading into a strange sense of calm. She had learned so much in the past few days, more than she had ever imagined possible. With each passing moment, her mind was opening to a new way of seeing the world around her. And it all started with Ethan. Zara had arrived on this planet thinking she was just another tracker, another alien sent to study the creatures. She had been trained to see them as threats, as things to fear and conquer. But now, after days of traveling with Ethan, she understood that the creatures were not the enemies. It was the way humans approached the world that made them so different from anyone else she had ever met. Ethan didn't conquer. He connected. He didn't fight. He understood. And for the first time, Zara understood the true power of humanity. It had been a week since the last encounter with the massive predator, the one that had once seemed so terrifying. Now the memories of that moment didn't feel like fear, but something else, something deeper. Zara had felt the creature's power and its instinct to protect itself, and yet she had tamed it, not with force, but with understanding. As they traveled further into the jungle, Ethan led the way, his movements steady and purposeful. Zara followed, but now it was different. She wasn't just observing. She was part of the team. She had learned how to navigate through the jungle, how to read the signs the creatures left behind, and how to move with them instead of against them. Are you ready? Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts, and Zara looked up, startled. Ready? Ready for what? Zara's gaze followed Ethan's. He was looking ahead at something in the distance. She squinted, trying to see what he was seeing. A large clearing opened up ahead, and in the middle, a group of creatures stood grazing. They were not predators, but they were still dangerous in their own right. They were massive, armored beasts with long horns and sharp claws. Their skin was thick like armor, and they had been known to charge at anything they considered a threat. Zara's heart raced as she realized what was about to happen. This was it. This was her moment. It was time for her to face the challenge. Alone. Ethan had taught her everything she needed to know, but now it was up to her. He had shown her how to connect with the predators, but these creatures were different. They weren't driven by the same instincts. They were more territorial. Zara had seen them attack without warning in the past. But Ethan had taught her that there was a way to deal with them too. It wasn't about fear. It was about presence. It was about understanding their behavior and knowing how to react. Zara took a deep breath, stepping forward. She could feel her heartbeat in her chest, but it wasn't fear. It was excitement. It was anticipation. She had learned everything she could from Ethan, and now she was ready to put it to the test. She moved slowly, her eyes locked on the creatures, watching their movements. Their heads were down, grazing on the tall grass, but their ears were twitching, alert to any movement. Zara crouched low, blending into the shadows, her steps quiet and deliberate. Ethan was a few steps behind, watching her with a careful, approving gaze. He trusted her. Zara could feel it. It was the first time in her life that someone had trusted her this much. Her people had always seen her as just another soldier, another tool in their fight for survival. But Ethan saw something else in her. He saw potential, and he had shown her how to see it in herself. Zara took another step forward. She wasn't afraid. She had already faced the deadliest predator on this planet, and she had won. But this was different. This wasn't about taming a single beast. This was about handling an entire group, creatures that had the power to crush her in seconds if they felt threatened. She raised her hands slowly, just like Ethan had taught her, showing them she meant no harm. She didn't speak. There was no need. The creatures had already noticed her. Their eyes were watching her, but they didn't seem hostile. They were curious but cautious. Zara held her breath, waiting for the next move. She took another step, her movements slow and fluid. She was focused, calm, just as Ethan had been. She could feel the energy in the air, the subtle tension, but she didn't let it control her. She had learned to embrace it, to move with it, instead of resisting it. The creatures snorted, their nostrils flaring as they took in her scent. But they didn't charge. They didn't attack. Zara could see the curiosity in their eyes, the way they were studying her. Slowly, she took another step closer, keeping her hands outstretched, not as a threat but as a sign of trust. The air around her seemed to thicken, but she didn't move. She held her ground, waiting, breathing in sync with the creatures. The leader of the pack stepped forward, its large horns glinting in the sunlight. Zara's heart raced, but she didn't look away. She didn't step back. And then, to her amazement, the creature lowered its head, its body relaxing. The others followed suit, slowly lowering their heads, their eyes never leaving Zara. She had done it. She had earned their trust. Zara felt a wave of relief wash over her. But there was something more than that. There was a deep sense of respect, not just for the creatures, but for herself. She had faced her fears and had come out victorious, not through force, but through understanding. Ethan moved up beside her, his eyes filled with pride. "You did it," he said quietly. Zara nodded, still in awe of what had just happened. She had learned so much from Ethan, more than just how to survive. She had learned how to live in harmony with the planet. She had learned that humanity's strength wasn't in their ability to fight. It was in their ability to understand, to connect, and to survive not through power, but through empathy. Zara looked at the creatures once more, their massive forms standing peacefully before her. She no longer saw them as threats. They were simply part of the world, just like her. And for the first time, she felt truly connected to it all. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression serious but filled with warmth. "You're ready now," he said. "You've learned what you needed to learn." Zara nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. Ethan smiled, his eyes sparkling. "No, Zara. Thank you. You've shown me that humanity isn't just about surviving. It's about living in harmony with everything around us. You've proven that." Zara's eyes glistened as she looked at him, realizing how much she had changed. She wasn't the same person who had first arrived on this planet, afraid and unsure. She was stronger now, not because of the skills she had learned, but because of the understanding she had gained. Together, they stood there in the jungle, surrounded by the creatures they had tamed, and for the first time in her life, Zara felt at peace. She had found her place, not just as a survivor, but as someone who could help others see the world in a different way.